10 West Sacramento Planning Commission to order. As is normal, we'd like to start with the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'd like to ask Commissioner Blackburn to lead us, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. We'll start with presentations by the public on matters not on the agenda, but within the jurisdiction of the Commission. There are no requests to speak now. So we'll move along to the consideration and approval of the minutes from the May 20th, 2010 Planning Commission meeting. Are there any comments or a motion to approve?
Madam Chairman, I'd make a motion that we approve the minutes of May 20th.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Liebig. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Abstain.
Thank you, Ms. Blackburn. It's passed with one abstention. We'll move to the approval of the agenda order. Any comments, changes? All right, we'll stand with order as it is on the agenda. Now we'll turn to Mr. Riccola, correspondence and staff communications from the city planner.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, members of the Planning Commission. Tonight you have one memo before you, and that is a memo from David Tilley on agenda item number 4, which is the changes to the zoning ordinance dealing with massage. That's the only piece of correspondence. Last night, the City Council met, and one item of significance that I want to point out is that the Council approved the first major construction contract for the Bridge District, which was a contract with the Tiger Company for $14 million, which is going to pay for a lot of the basic infrastructure first phase of work on roads and utilities. So that was good to see that that is moving forward.
Thank you, Mr. Riccola.
You're welcome.
We'll turn to item E, which is disclosure of ex parte communications. Any commissioners have anything to report, disclose? All right, we'll move along to the consent agenda. We have the Raleyfield Entertainment Venue Conditional Use Permit and Plan Development Permit Time Extension. On our consent agenda, any questions? Motion?
Madam Chairman, I'd make a motion that we ratify the zoning administrator action.
I'll
Right.
second.
The permit time extension? All right, there's a motion to accept the consent agenda and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That passes unanimously. Thank you. We'll move on to the regular agenda, and that's a continued public hearing regarding an amendment to Plan Development 40 regarding freestanding signs. And Ms. White will present us with a staff report.
Good evening, Chairperson Sandine and members of the Planning Commission. 7-Eleven is proposing a text amendment to Plan Development 40 to allow monument signs that will be higher than the current requirement. The monument signs currently are limited to a maximum of 3 feet in height and 12 square feet in area. The applicant originally proposed a text amendment that would allow the signs to be consistent with the citywide sign ordinance, which allows 12-foot-tall signs in commercially zoned properties. The Planning Commission conducted a workshop on the applicant's request on April 15th, where the commission indicated that it was amenable to monument signs that were less than 12 foot tall. The Planning Commission did not specify a preference for any particular height. The applicant revised their requests and is proposing a text amendment that would allow 8-foot-tall monument signs not exceeding 20 square feet in sign area on the C1 zone properties in PD 40. Since all the findings can be made for this request, staff recommends that the Planning Commission continue the public hearing, certify that the Planning Commission has reviewed and considered the proposed categorical exemption and approves the categorical exemption as presented by staff, and that the categorical exemption reflects the independent judgment of the city as lead agency under CEQA, and approve the requested Plan Development 40 text amendment subject excuse me, to the conditions and findings as identified in the staff report. This concludes my presentation, and the applicant is available to answer any questions that the Planning Commission may have, as well as myself.
Thank you, Ms. White. I'd like to continue the public hearing. We'll reopen that. Are there questions of the applicant or from the commission of staff? All right. We'll go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission for action and discussion.
Want to say anything?
All right. Comments, discussion?
I have a comment, actually having to do with the sign and the location. The 7-Eleven is right on the corner, and I'm just a little bit concerned regarding the visibility requirements that we would have for, I think, isn't there like a 40-foot from the radius of the intersection that can't have anything obstructing view?
There
So
is a
it looks
vision
like that sign, it's not indicated where the sign's going to be, and I'm just
No,
concerned.
they would have to comply with setbacks, and also there's a vision triangle. So, when they submit the sign permit application, we'll make sure that's appropriately located. So it would have to be out of the vision triangle. I think it's 30 feet.
Thank you.
Any other questions of staff or action?
I have a comment.
Okay, comment.
Okay. I guess my comment is that I don't know, maybe I don't know what the signage is, but we had the fortune teller take her sign down, remove it from its height. We had the Chevron station do likewise. We had the Beacon station take down their sign and put a monument sign down. So would this sign be consistent with those signs?
This sign those properties are not located in PD 40.
Well, they
Number
are,
one.
because that one goes to 15th Street.
Nope.
No, it's not in PD 40.
It's PD.
I thought you said it went
It's
to
in different,
15th Street.
it's in different PD.
Yeah, it's in an area called PD 32, which are just a couple of the properties on West Capitol and they wrap around Park. So when we did this
No,
sign
at
for the fortune
15th
teller.
Street, though, I mean, this says it goes to 15th Street, right? Which is the Beacon Station, is on the corner of 15th Street across from Whitey's.
It's a couple of properties
19th
down,
One property
it's a
down.
couple of properties south of 15th Street. You're
Okay.
looking at, yes, so.
Anyway, I guess my question is, for uniformity, that I wouldn't allow anything to be different, and they're under restrictions when they built their signs. Will this be any larger at all?
For the properties that are not in a PD, in the commercial zones, they're allowed to have a 12-foot tall sign, freestanding sign.
Right, okay.
So the signs in PD 40 would be 8 feet tall as opposed to 12. So they would be lower.
It could be lower.
Well, they're requesting, they're texting.
Well, that was my question last time, my comment last time is that we had other signs that had to be lowered. In fact, I think the veterinary clinic had to remove their sign too, and they put it on the side of the building like the fortune teller. You know, my only concern with this is that we have a PD zone, we have height limitations in there, and they were put there for a reason, and I haven't figured out why we would want to change that for one person.
It wouldn't be for one person, it would be for all the commercially zoned properties in PD 40. There are
Well, it
about
could be,
25 properties in PD 40 that are zoned commercial.
But the others had made the same, I guess they could have made the same request.
Sure.
But they didn't, and so they've complied with what's there now, and I don't know why we would want to change it. I haven't seen anything in this that says why we would want to change this for anybody. I didn't hear you say there was a reason to do it. I didn't read in here where you had a reason where you thought it was best for this one business out of all the businesses to have a higher sign.
It wouldn't be for just one business in PD 40, it would be for all the businesses that are in PD 40 that are commercially zoned. So if they want to have an 8-foot tall sign, they will be able to have the same, they will be able to have an 8-foot tall sign too. It's just that 7-Eleven initiated the request. Which, of course, would benefit them, but it will also benefit all the other commercially zoned properties in PD 40.
If they want to redo
If they
all their
want to,
signs.
correct, yes. Or if they
Now
want to
they're
put
in
a,
compliance, though.
or if the commercially zoned properties want to have a sign that's 6 feet tall, they would still be in compliance with what's being proposed here, but they can't be any higher than 8 feet.
I understand what you're saying, Sandra. I was just saying, though, there's only one person that's requested this. Everybody else is in compliance. And it just doesn't, and their signs seem to be the perfect size to me, and I just didn't see why we would want to change that. And I didn't read in here anything that you said would make a compelling reason to want to change the ordinance that we currently have. That's my comment.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Other comments?
Madam Chairman, I have one more, just
Mr. Morrissey?
for clarification. In the staff report on page 2, bottom, page 2, it talks about, is brought to the attention of the Planning Commission that the applicant was required to provide letters of support from at least half the property owners of half of the properties. And at the time of that meeting, the workshop, that hadn't been done, and there's no indication that it has, there's been any follow-up to get that accomplished. And I'm just wondering who made that stipulation as far as the requirement to provide letters, and if that is something that's a binding requirement from city staff that we need to address.
That was a request that we made on a couple of other PD text amendments that we processed a couple of years ago, one in 2004 and the other one in 2007. And because we had made that request on previous PD amendments, we want to be consistent, and also we made the similar request for this application as well. And they had sent out one set of letters and followed up with another set of letters, and they weren't able to get 50% of the property owners that own 50% of the land in PD 40. So we indicated to the applicant that we would make this known to the Planning Commission, and we, brought it to the attention of the Planning Commission at the last workshop, and so there was no comment made at that time that the Planning Commission wanted the applicant to get additional letters of support.
Okay, so two separate times letters were sent to all the property owners?
Sure.
And about a third of them responded with support. So,
Can I just clarify too? Sorry, jump in.
go ahead.
So it's not a requirement. I think Mr. Morzini's question was, is if it's a requirement to make a change? Or,
It's not a requirement, I would say, per se, but it's just
It's
additional.
past practice, I guess.
past practice, that's,
Yeah,
okay,
past
right, that's what I was trying to.
And
okay.
one of the PDs probably had just over 50%. I'm not sure that the other PD amendment had 50% of the owners supported last time.
Help answer your question.
Yeah, I guess, but I guess it's in the staff report because you want to bring it to our attention, and it could be interpreted that because the applicant couldn't secure at least half the property owners of half the properties, that could be an indication that a significant number of folks aren't supportive of, property owners aren't supportive of this. We haven't seen anybody come to the workshop. I don't believe last time.
None
And
came.
nobody seems to be here this time expressing their displeasure with what the applicant's requesting. So I'm just wondering, as Commissioner Sandin just seemed to get a comment from you that this isn't necessary. It's a past practice, but not a requirement.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the recommended action.
Moved by Mr. Ledesma, is there a second? Seconded by Ms. Blackburn. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Sorry, that was a no for me.
So, Ms. Schmidt, just for the record, can we do a roll call? I believe it's 4-2, but just for the record.
Commissioner Blackburn,
Who's asking?
Yes.
Aye or
Yeah,
no?
aye or no?
Aye,
Aye.
yeah,
Aye.
your second.
I said, yeah. Commissioner Ledesma,
Yes.
Commissioner Morzini,
Yes.
Commissioner Moore,
No.
Commissioner Liebig,
No.
Liebig, sorry. And Chair
Aye.
Sandy?
Aye.
Wow.
So that
So
motion,
it's 4 ayes and 2 noes.
right, thank you. That item passes 4-2. Thank you. We'll move on to item number 3, which is a public hearing regarding proposed amendments to the temporary offsite real property sign ordinance.
The Planning Commission conducted a public workshop on the proposed amendments to the temporary off-site real property sign ordinance on May 20th. There were no public comments on this item, and there were no comments from the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission may recall that most of the proposed amendments were previously recommended for approval but the Sacramento Association of Realtors raised some concerns that the proposed amendments did not accommodate temporary off-site open house signs. The package of amendments that are before you tonight include the amendments that were previously recommended for approval by the Planning Commission and changes that will allow temporary off-site signs for open houses. The proposed changes that were previously recommended by the Planning Commission include prohibiting off-site signs on city-owned properties, allowing one off-site sign for 4 or fewer lots and 2 off-site signs for each subdivision, provided that the subdivision is not located in the master plan development, and allowing 4 off-site kiosks for master plan developments. The additional amendments proposed to the ordinance will allow what are being called event directional signs, which would function like open house signs. And the reason that they're being called event directional signs is that the signs cannot be limited to residential properties and must be available to any real property that is being made available for sale, lease, or exchange. So they're being called event directional signs rather than open house directional signs. If the proposed changes are adopted, the temporary off-site sign ordinance will regulate 4 types of off-site real estate signs. One being the off-site weekend directional signs, which are currently allowed, off-site signs that are not limited to the weekend, off-site kiosks, and off-site event directional signs. Staff is recommending that the Planning Commission conduct a public hearing, adopt Resolution 10-4 PC, recommending that the City Council adopt proposed amendments to the zoning ordinance regarding the temporary off-site real property signs. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Ms. White. This is a public hearing. We'll open the public hearing for the good of the order. No request to speak. Close the public hearing, bring it back to the commission for discussion and action.
Madam Chairman, I think actually it's noted that there were no comments from the Planning Commission at the last workshop, and I think the presentation was very clear and concise. Also, this is really important to try to get some order in these temporary signs, and also address the needs of the real estate market, both those folks that are owners of property and those people that help facilitate the sales. So with that, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the recommended action.
The motion by Mr. Morazzini, there's a motion by Mr. Morazzini. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Seconded by, it's a tie, but I think I'll go with
Doesn't
Mr. Moore. Tied, seconded by Mr. Moore. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? It passes unanimously. Thank you. Thank you to staff for the work on those 2 items. Now we'll move to item number 4, which is the continued public hearing on proposed amendments to the West Sacramento zoning ordinance regarding massage therapy. Mr. Tilley.
Yes, good evening, Madam Chairwoman, members of the Planning Commission. As sure as you all will recall, at our last Planning Commission meeting, we took up the topic of massage therapy and how it's currently regulated in the city and how we would propose to change that. At the last meeting, there was not a level of comfort with the Planning Commission in terms of how the massage is currently defined under the city's municipal code. And even though there was support for the intent of trying to become a little bit more liberal with how massage therapy can be provided within the city, it was felt that the manner by which we're proposing to make changes at our last meeting may have inadvertently opened up the door for massage therapy that's under more of an adult entertainment context to also be more liberal, and which was certainly not our intent. But we recognize the Planning Commission's concern, and this evening we've returned to you tonight with a slightly different approach, but to accomplish the same objectives. And so I would like to draw your attention to the memo I provided to you this evening. After the staff report was published, we did have some additional consultation with the city attorney's office, and so we're asking the commission tonight to focus on the definition of massage therapy that's contained within the memo. Our intent and approach at this point with respect to massage therapy is to create a classification of massage therapy that's differentiated from that is in the municipal code, which appears to be of a more or adult entertainment context. So this particular definition is intended to specifically exclude those characteristics that define an adult entertainment use from a more traditional operation. And furthermore, we wanted to, in this definition, also clarify that and make a clear distinction between how massage is treated in the adult entertainment ordinance and how it would be provided in the other sections of the zoning ordinance. So with this definition, we would then also add massage therapy as a land use that's based on this definition into the land use zoning matrix, as we had shown you in our last hearing, where it would become a permitted use in many of our commercial zones and waterfront and mixed-use areas, and as a permitted use. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Tilley. And this is a continued public hearing, so we'll go ahead and reopen the public hearing. And there are no requests to speak, so we'll close the public hearing and take it back to the commission for comments, discussion, and action. Okay, Mr. Liebig, you're up first.
I don't want to know the answer to my question, so I'll pass.
Oh, okay. Other comments, discussion, questions? Mr. Ledesma.
Thank you. Thanks for revising the language so none of us are giggling up here as in the last meeting on the previous definition. This looks, I think, pretty much where we want it to go. I just had maybe it's a stupid question, but the way we worded this is by any, the definition is referring to state business codes on what defines a massage therapist. And I'm just curious, does that preclude any type of business? I'm assuming, I don't know much about the massage industry. I mean,
what this really refers to is where the massage training standards are contained within the State Business and Professions Code. There are some certain, obviously the state certifies, or after people have gone to a recognized school and have, I think it's like 200 hours of training. So these Business and Profession Code references more of the training standards that are established at the state rather than the actual definition of massage.
so we're not, and it's just maybe a far-fetched concern would be that we're requiring that any business have that certification. What we're saying is, though, they should have, the business should be like that.
What I think we're trying to do is to distinguish those uses that would be considered massage therapy and allowed as permitted uses in the commercial zones and waterfront from someone who is not certified by the state, who might be doing the exact same thing, but without that certification, they would not fall into this category of massage therapy. And the idea there is to try to reinforce that distinction between legitimate massage businesses by someone who's a trained practitioner and certified by the state and having undergone background check and various other things that the state does as part of its certification process, as a way of making that line between an adult activity and one that we're going to allow as a permitted use.
Okay.
That makes sense?
It does. I guess the core question is this put us on the hook because it's a land use issue that we're contemplating here. Right. It's an ordinance. We're not requiring that we have to check for the certification, are we?
Through the business licensing.
Through the business licensing process.
Through the business licensing process, the people would have to submit copies of their license or certificate. I'm not sure exactly how the state characterizes it. So that was something we would be doing already.
You're getting to the core. We're not adding on a process unattendedly by having this. Okay.
This through even under current standards through the business licensing process, we would ask for a copy of their professional license or certification.
Okay, I think I understand. Thank you.
Madam Chairman, I'd like to thank staff for their redefining this or clarifying the definition. Seems like originally it would solicit some sort of reaction if we were to read it out loud, and the thought probably didn't occur very long for any of us to try to read it out loud last time. So this is very good. It identifies specifically what's allowed and references where somebody might look if there's some issues as far as whether or not this is meeting the definition of the legitimate massage business that we're trying to get to locate here in our city. So thanks again for that. I appreciate it.
Any other comments?
Well, my comment
Mr. Moore.
would be, and Russ just mentioned something real quick too, you know, that I didn't even know that there was such a thing that the state certified a massage therapist, but it's probably like when you get your car smogged, you have to go through a school. When you go to a barber shop, or a beauty shop, they have their little certificate from the state also. So that's probably a similar idea.
Yes, it's a, I wouldn't call it a license, but there are schools that provide a certification. It's probably analogous to like cosmetology.
Yeah,
Something like that.
There was a change in the statute a couple of years ago that created, I don't remember the name of it, but there's now a regulating body that's charged with certifying massage therapists, and there are two different types of massage therapists, and et cetera, but it's what David's talking about.
With that, Madam Chairman, I'd make a motion that we approve the recommended action
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Moved by Mr. Moore.
with the amendment that
With-
we received tonight.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
Seconded by Mr. Morzini. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Tilley. And council, we're moving to informal discussion now. My only item is just, Mr. Ricola, will we be canceling the July 1st meeting? Is that on the books?
Yes,
Okay.
it is.
Just so people can plan.
We talked about that back in January.
Right.
And it is our desire, based on comments from the Planning Commission, to cancel the July 1st meeting.
Thank you, just to give people notice for their planning purposes. With that, if there's no more discussion, I'd like to request a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
Mr. Moore, is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Mr. Ledesma. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye, thank you very much. Good night.